Aviation-Quest.cc 101, wind 270 degrees, 10 knots, runway 27 left, cleared for takeoff.
Aviation-Quest.cc 101, cleared for takeoff 27 left. V1, rotate. Positive climb.
Aviation-Quest.cc Stories from above. The views shared in this podcast are personal and for informational purposes only. They do not reflect any employer or aviation authority, and nothing discussed here should be considered flight training or regulatory guidance. Please always refer to official sources. This episode may also contain product placement. For further information, visit our website aviation-quest.cc.
So, this is the third episode of Aviation-Quest CC. I'm your host, Jürgen Reis, and it is the 25th of August 2025, and we are recording this at 12:30 Zulu time. And certainly, also this time, I'm not alone here in the podcast cockpit, so my second pilot, so to say, podcast pilot in command is on the other side. Hello, Stefan.
Hey, Jürgen, how are you?
I am fine. It's a beautiful day here. And yeah, I'm looking forward for a continuation of what we did last time. So, to make a long story short, literally speaking, we had 10 questions and we made it to question number 2. Well done us, Stefan. What's your take on that?
Well, it's fair to say you added some additional questions that were not in the script. But yeah, no, we didn't get very far.
Yeah, no. It was, at all we had 10 questions to cover. But as we mentioned in the end of the last episode, it wasn't for sure our goal to get all questions done in one episode. But yeah, Aviation-Quest CC is already writing big numbers or aiming for serial podcasts or series of podcasts right in the beginning.
Yes. And before I forget, because I always forget, if you watch this on YouTube, you're going to see a flight. And today's flight is from Tokyo to Sapporo within Japan. So it's a domestic flight. It's operated by Japan Airlines, and it is operated by an Airbus A350.
Wow, so another plane, beautiful scenery, as I can imagine. And the third question, I will ask the question, and there is also a YouTube tip, but I think our channel to keep this separated is Aviation Quest.
Yes. So YouTube doesn't accept anything apart from Aviation-Quest as a channel name. Yeah, the full name of the podcast is Aviation-Quest CC, but on YouTube we are just known as Aviation-Quest.
No, because why I'm mentioning this is there is also a famous YouTube channel of yours, and this is FS Clips. And so as I said, I will give out a YouTube tip or a film tip in the following question, and this is on Stefan's channel. This is FS Clip, and certainly our YouTube channel is Aviation Quest, and the homepage is Aviation Quest CC. But yeah, are you ready for the third question, Stefan?
Yes, let's see how many questions we get done today. Go ahead.
Yep. How much hand flying are you actually still doing in a modern cockpit?
Right. So takeoffs are still done manually all the time. I know Airbus has been testing fully automatic takeoffs on the A350. But as of this moment in time, every single takeoff is done by hand. Once the gear is up, it's really down to the pilot when he or she wants to switch on the autopilot. So for me, this really depends on the departure. So if it's a very, very busy airspace with a complex departure with level offs and stuff, like Heathrow is a prime example, I switch on the autopilot literally once the gear's up because I want to concentrate on what needs to be done. The autopilot then stays on throughout the flight until just before landing. And once again, it comes down to pilot preference and circumstances. Of course, we want to practice hand flying, and I personally really enjoy hand flying. It's a cool feeling to be in control of these machines, but it has to be appropriate. If you fly into, I don't know, Rome or Düsseldorf during rush hour, you're number 15 to land, everything is stacked tightly, the departures in between, I would not hand fly the aircraft. I would literally go down to 1,000 feet and then switch off the autopilot and just land it. If you're flying to a Greek island and you're the only aircraft around, then yeah, sure, at, I don't know, 9,000 feet, switch off the autopilot and just enjoy, just doing some hand flying. So that's usually what's happening. So the cruise, climb, descent is all done autopilot, and it's really only takeoff, final approach and landing. So on a normal flight between two busy airports, let's say Düsseldorf Heathrow is a typical route during rush hour. It's literally gear up, autopilot on, and at Heathrow then at 1,000 feet, just before minimum, autopilot off, you land. So 99.5% is done by the autopilot, and the rest is done hand flying. And this is simply workload management. It's too busy. You don't wanna add additional workload in those scenarios.
And Stefan, with Heathrow, you just mentioned it 3 times. I was counting. You were already, without knowing it, building the bridge to the video tip I want to give out. Because if any listener would be interested or is interested how little ham flying is possible in a modern Airbus, I highly recommend, and Stefan, I think you will agree, your movie, How to Perform an Autoland Like a Pro. I think this is really, it was also for me an eye-opener, how much automation is possible in an A320. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, low-vis is a completely different scenario. Flying manually means you have to be visual, because you just look outside the cockpit window and you fly towards the runway. If it's a foggy day, you can't see anything, then, you never switch off the autopilots. The aircraft lands completely by itself. It slows down on the runway. Everything is done fully automatically because you can't see anything. The aircraft does what it always does. It doesn't know that there is fog. It just lands. And so, then obviously in that circumstance, there's no hand flying during the approach and landing whatsoever.
Yeah, I told the listeners in the very first episode about my Amiga times and the A320 I flew back then. And this was also, it was back then, it was really a benchmarking software by Italian, and there was a simplified autopilot system included. But what I have seen on your video, it's certainly, I think also this Phoenix, they really simulated everything in detail, which was back in the day certainly absolutely impossible. I mean, with an Amiga 500, but nowadays with the PC, I think listeners can very well even perform, automatic or almost full automatic flying and enjoy the hand flying, certainly on the sim. So, as you said, even to limits which is certainly in reality are in reality unthinkable.
Yeah, I agree. The latest simulators with the latest add-ons are very, very, very close to reality. And I think it's good because the latest simulators use real world weather. You just say to the sim, just give me the weather as it is in the real world. And if you fly into an airport where there's fog, well, then it's going to be fog. So the aircraft you fly has to be able to do an auto land because you're not going to be able to land it. So yeah, a lot has changed since the Amiga 500. Um, just a question, when did the Amiga 500 come out?
Oh, this is now you are getting me in dangerous territory. So the listeners can comment me now when I am wrong or completely off. My guessing is 1987, but this is really a
Oh,
don't shoot on me. But I think something like
okay.
this. But it was really a crazy machine, and also what I think it was a German company, this Celion, what they did with the A320. It was for me really it was mind blowing back in the days. It was really, I could do ILS approaches and VOR to VOR navigation. I flew all over Europe without any, without any ground site or any. It was crazy.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking because that's pretty much at the same time as the Airbus A320 was launched. So they literally took a brand new aircraft and simulated it, which is very impressive.
The software was released a little bit later. I think it was 1991. So the Amiga
Yeah.
was released. Your question was the Amiga. This, I think, was 1987. But yeah, 1991. And now we are 2025. Times are changing, luckily.
Yes, yes. Well, I still remember the Amiga. It was a really cool machine. At some point, I had an Amiga 2000,
Oh,
and I
wow.
was convinced it was the future. But
Certainly.
then things turned out very differently, right?
But yeah, from the Amiga into your cockpit. I mean, back in the days, I flew also the Stallion A320 with a joystick. And also in the aircraft, there is something like a joystick. And I myself certainly never sat in a real plane. But what's the feeling of the Airbus joystick? I think it's certainly the side stick. But what is the feeling? Is there something like a feedback or what's going on there? I think it's much more than just a simple joystick.
Yeah. So all modern Airbus have a side stick, which is essentially looks like a big joystick, and it's either to the left or the right, depending on where you sit in the cockpit. Very different from Boeing. Boeing has this big yoke in front of you. And the Boeing philosophy is that the yoke is essentially I don't know, like a conduit. So you can almost feel what the aircraft is doing. You can feel pressure on the yoke. If the aircraft moves the controls, the yoke will move. So even if you don't touch anything, the yoke will always be moving around and you can see what the aircraft is doing. The Airbus side stick is the complete opposite. It is not connected to anything apart from a whole bunch of computers. And what people need to understand is the Airbus philosophy is completely different. You do not control the aircraft. What you do is you give an input on the side stick, and it literally feels like a computer side stick. There's no feedback. There's nothing. You don't know if the aircraft is in trim or out of trim or anything like that. It's just a side stick. And when you give an input, it is sent to a whole bunch of computers that basically interpret what it is you want to do. And they then calculate what is the best and most efficient way to achieve that. And they then start sending those signals to other computers that start moving the flight surfaces. So what that means is even if, for example, I fly the A320neo, which is the latest version of the A320, if you are on the runway and you accelerate and you reach the point where you rotate, if you would yank back the stick like really fast, the aircraft realizes you want to take off, but it also realizes you're too close to the ground. If you would do that maneuver, you would have a tail strike. So it will raise the nose, but it will do it nice and slow. And it will even stop just before the tail strike happens and keep the nose there even though you're pulling fully back. And once the aircraft lifts up, it will further lift the nose. So what that means is you give inputs, the aircraft thinks about it, says, you know what you're doing here is not safe. Let me, do this properly. It may sound a bit weird at the beginning because it feels like you're not in control, but actually you can push the aircraft quite far. You can do a lot of really crazy stuff that you would never ever do anyway. It's just that the aircraft wants to prevent any kind of maneuver that would cause damage to the aircraft. That's essentially it. So to answer your question, side stick, no feedback whatsoever. It's like a joystick at home, just a bit stiffer. And like I said, you have to understand that you're not flying the aircraft, you're flying with the aircraft. The aircraft is always flying with you, even when the autopilot is off and everything is off. It's a different philosophy. I really like it because what it means is we never have to trim. We never have to do anything. If I take off and I put the nose at 15 degrees and go into a 20-degree bank and I let go of the control, the aircraft will hold this forever and ever and ever, will never move. So I literally just point the nose where I want the aircraft to go, and that's where it will go. No trimming, no nothing, no correcting. And that makes flying very, very, very easy. So if you fly an ILS and it's a nice calm day without any wind, you switch off the autopilot, you literally don't touch anything because the aircraft is already set up for the approach. It just flies down the ILS, nice and easy, maybe some slight inputs, and that's it. So very, very nice and very easy to hand fly.
That's really interesting. So there is really something like a high-end joystick called side stick. Yeah, I was a little bit surprised. I thought there might be some feedback or some they built in some, but now I understand the philosophy, and I think once you get used to it, this could be really, yeah, I mean, you get used to it and then yeah, it's an advantage for you if you fly it. I mean, if you're used to fly it, I think yeah, it comes with the get used to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very relaxed way of flying.
I can imagine,
It's
yeah, because you don't
yeah,
fight against any mechanism or
no trimming, no nothing. You just put the pitch on 15 and it will stay at 15 forever. It will never move. So it's very, very simple flying. The one thing the Airbus does really not like is if you give too many inputs at the same time on the stick, especially if you start moving the stick in circles. The way I was explained this during my type rating is the Airbus is essentially a huge flying computer and it only understands 1 and 0. So if you hand fly the aircraft on a windy day, it's quite bumpy. What you do is, let's say you see that the aircraft is descending too fast, you pull back on the stick and then put it back to neutral and see what happens. And if it's not enough, you pull back again. And if you need to go slightly to the left, you do that, you give that input and then go back to 0. So it's always one input at any time. And then you always go back to the neutral position. You don't start moving the stick in all kinds of directions at the same time. That usually ends up in a very unstable situation, and the aircraft will be all over the shop. And that takes some time to get used to, especially if it's windy. You want to give a lot of inputs. You can do it very fast, but it's just a different way of flying. It's just one input at any given time, see what that does, and then give the next input. You can do it very quickly, but never ever start, moving like like stirring a pot, with the stick. That does not work. That will never be a nice approach.
What I was just thinking of when I said the minute before fighting against the mechanism, I mean, certainly in the gliders and the motor gliders, we also had sticks, and there you feel the air, you feel turbulence, you have sometimes really, yeah, you have to really fight to get the aircraft, do what it's supposed to do, and still is certainly it's a rewarding feeling when you are so to say the king or really the pilot in command of the aircraft. You feel like this, but this leads me to my next in-depth question, Stefan. Compared to a GA aircraft, I think you also flew Cessna and little aircraft in flight school for sure. Is hand flying rewarding in the airline world, or how rewarding is it?
Pooh, it's very different, I obviously in the GA aircraft, apart from one aircraft I flew, none of them had an autopilot. So you are only hand flying the entire time. So you're always trimming, you're always, correcting the pitch and
Yeah,
um,
certainly. I
now,
mean, in the GA aircraft, also in the gliders, motor gliders, no autopilot, no nothing. I mean, when I said
yeah,
fighting the mechanism, it's the mechanism are the, so to say, the cables. They are directly connected to the control surfaces. There is nothing between. Let go of a computer.
exactly. So it's a very different I don't know, it's a very different kind of flying. Also, even though there were some very busy airports I flew into with my little aircraft, I spent some time in the US and in Canada. And, I went into Halifax. I once flew into Phoenix, which is a super busy airport. So, yes, the workload can still be quite high. But because of the aircraft, I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but like a Cessna or Warrior is in a sense a very simple aircraft. It can be flown by one pilot very easily. That is not the case in an airliner where they're really designed to be flown by two people, and there's a huge amount of stuff going on. In terms of being it rewarding, I mean, for me, I've always been an airliner guy. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed my flight school. It was a lot of fun, but I always loved the idea of being in control of a huge, nice jet, and the transition to jet was something I really, really enjoyed. The speeds and the way the aircraft behaves. So for me personally, I would say hand flying an airliner is more fun, just because you are in control of this big machine. You're going at really high speeds. And when you fly an approach, I mean, you're still coming in at, when the aircraft is heavy, you're still coming in at 145, maybe 150 knots, which is way above the cruise speed of most general aviation aircraft. So for me personally, I prefer the airliner hand flying thing because it just feels, I don't know. I'm someone, you know me. I like speed. I like technology. That's just my world, from VR headset to my car, which is electric with autopilot and everything. That's why I feel comfortable. Yeah. So for me personally, I would always pick the airliner over a GA aircraft.
But even so, long story short, my takeaway from your answer was yes, it is rewarding to hand fly an airliner. Certainly not in, maybe it's a whole different animal, certainly an airliner compared with, and yes, I think Cessna is even by law, a Cessna 172, correct me, Stefan, but this, I think, this is a simple aircraft, or it is there are simple aircraft, complex aircrafts, and there are different categories, and I think this is, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is what's left in my mind here from some flight school days. And compared, I mean, it's another story, but it is rewarding to fly an airliner in the, yeah, also in real world, not also in flight simulation by via hand.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when you sit in there and you're in control of the machine, especially if it's a not so easy day, when it's windy, you have a crosswind, you come in with a crab. and then you come in over the threshold, you flare, you put the engines into idle, you kick the rudder, dip the wing, and everything works like clockwork, First one wheel touches down, then the other main gear, then the nose gear, and you're on the center line in the touchdown zone. It's just a really nice feeling to, do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think the aircraft categories you can, or do you have an idea here what's going on? I think there's also, when is the separation of a two-man cockpit? I mean, this is also a thing when it comes to hand flying and automation. I mean, there are different categories. I think most people understands, but can you give a little bit an overview to have you? Don't worry, I'm not an examiner or something like this. Just for the sake of the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not in entirely sure what exactly the rules are
Me
from which
neither.
point onwards, but I think it simply will have to do with the complexity of the aircraft.
Yeah.
I mean, there are propeller-driven aircraft that need two pilots, so it's not a big jet thing,
No.
I think it simply comes down to system depth
Yeah.
and workload management. I mean, when I did my multi-engine instrument rating, I did this on the Seneca, and that's already a pretty complex aircraft with variable pitch, two engines. There was a lot to manage. And officially it's a single engine, single pilot aircraft. But to me, that was pretty much on the limit of what I would want to do as a pilot in terms of workload. Anything beyond that, I feel you really want to have two pilots in the cockpit.
I also hear from Hornems also today. It's taking off and landing like crazy with the parachuters. They have, think it's still a Cessna Caravan, and I once flew with them as well as a parachute, so to say, tourist, as well as in the cockpit. It was really, really interesting. And this is crazy what's going on there. So this pilot was really a professional. I was just, whoa, scraping my head, and this workload and also his flying skills. I think it really depends, and people don't underestimate the general aviation aircraft. They come with some workload because you're alone, and certainly no computer, no autopilot often, or limited autopilot. And yeah, but also here I think the simulator can do a great job of get a feeling of both worlds.
Yeah, and I think you must never ever underestimate the role of experience. Anyone who has a PPL will tell you the first time they were flying alone without an instructor sitting next to them, because you spend your entire first part with someone sitting next to you, always giving you tips and making sure you don't forget anything. And then one day they say, okay, we think you're ready, you can go up on your own. And the first time you're on your own in that cockpit, it feels unnerving. At least it was for me, because there's no safety net. It's all down to you. And if if you make a mistake, it's down to you to correct it. So experience comes into that as well. The more you fly, the more routine it becomes. This goes for any aircraft. And that's also why when we have new pilots joining the company, there's 3 of us in the cockpit, not 2, until we are happy that they are proficient on the aircraft. So a similar thing to, learning how to fly a Cessna. There's going to be an instructor next to you for the first few flights. We are 3 in the cockpit whenever there's a new person joining the company. And once we're happy that they are, good enough, basically, and they pass a line check, then we remove the third person. So that's another big factor, how much you've actually flown already.
The first solo flight, yeah, that's really another story. You just brought my mind into some back in the days memories in Styria. It was fantastic.
But it's scary, no? The first time
No,
you
it's
see
great, but this is not the topic of this podcast. We will make it or not. This is crazy. We have a 30-minute podcast and we have minute 27 now. What are we doing here? We have minute 29. I cannot believe it. We covered one question more. Now we are at question 3 of 10. Yeah, well, all I can say, dear listeners, please leave us a lot of comments. Also, invitation, interview suggestions are highly welcome, as well as further questions. We can go on like this forever. I love it. I like it. Also, your feedback, positive, negative, always welcome. Subscribe, like us, follow us. I cannot believe that I am saying this. I cannot stand it if somebody is saying that. I don't know. But yeah, leave us a review. Also, negative ones. We want to learn. We want to get better. And our email address is aviation@aviation-quest.cc. And please also follow Stefan's channel, FS Clips. It's really... Yeah, there are so many great videos, and it's really also, it's just worth seeing every single one of it. But Stefan, as I said, we are making already something like podcast history for Aviation Quest from the beginning on. It's okay. Next time we will cover maybe the fourth question, maybe the half of the fourth question. We are getting better.
we're getting better, yeah. It's at some point we have to introduce a quick fire round.
We are
Otherwise,
improving. We are improving. Maybe we should next time we split the fourth question into 2 parts. That would be fun.
yes. Or you just ask questions that I can answer with yes and no.
Oh,
And
this
then
is
it's very
great.
quick.
Close question. Just what's your take on that? And then, I make 2 suggestions, and you have to say answer one, answer A or answer B. So like an oral exam with an examiner, which is really
Yes.
close by.
We just do multiple choice and
Yes,
then we split
yes,
it up.
exactly. And
Yeah.
only one answer is accepted.
Okay, good. Fair enough. All right. Well, sorry we didn't get much further, but I still enjoyed it, and always enjoy talking to you, Jürgen. I hope people actually enjoy listening to it as well. And yeah, so thank you to everyone, and I look forward to hearing and seeing everyone in the next episode. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Aviation Quest CC Stories from Above. For more information about this episode and everything we do, visit our homepage aviation-quest.cc. We appreciate your time and support, and we'd love to have you back for the next episode. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and keep your passion for aviation flying high.